Get ready, because what I'm about to share will have you questioning everything you think you know about quiet neighborhoods and the people who live there. My name's Anthony Cole, and not long ago, I thought I'd finally found peace. A place to relax. Somewhere I wouldn't have to look over my shoulder all the time. I was wrong. So very wrong. It started when I moved into a quiet, well-kept gated community called Willow Creek Estates. I'd worked hard for years, and this move was my reward. A little slice of suburban paradise where I could finally put down roots. As someone who's pretty tech-savvy, I knew the first thing I needed was to upgrade my home security. So I ordered a state-of-the-art smart lock for the front gate of my property. You can never be too careful these days. Besides, who doesn't appreciate the convenience of smart tech, right? So there I was one sunny Saturday afternoon, screwdriver in hand, happily installing the lock. Everything seemed normal. It was quiet, birds chirping, and I thought, yeah, this is the life. But that peace was shattered about 10 minutes later. I hadn't even finished tightening the last screw when I heard a sharp voice barking across the street. I looked up and saw a woman storming toward me like a missile locked on target. I didn't know her name at the time, but for the sake of the story and the role she played in it, let's call her Barbara. You know, the kind of Barbara the internet talks about. That Barbara. Her face was redder than a stop sign as she marched across my driveway, finger pointed at me like I was some kind of escaped convict. Before I could even say hello, she was already shouting. "You're not authorized to be here," she snapped. "This is private property. You're trespassing." I blinked. Was she serious? I calmly set my tools down and explained that I lived here. I even pulled out my driver's license and the deed to the house from my folder, something I always carry when doing home repairs, just in case. But none of it mattered to her. Barbara wasn't listening. She just kept escalating, her voice getting sharper and louder with every word. "I'm calling the police," she shrieked, pulling out her phone like it was a loaded weapon. I sighed. Of course this was happening. I stood there silently while she dialed 911, knowing full well how this could go. I was a black man in a predominantly white neighborhood, accused of breaking into my own home. I'd seen stories like this play out too many times before, and they rarely ended well. As I waited, I could hear snippets of her frantic call. "He's tampering with the gate. Yes, it looks suspicious. I'm afraid for my safety." You'd think I was holding a crowbar and wearing a ski mask the way she talked. It was absurd. When the police finally arrived, I took a deep breath. Two officers stepped out of their cruiser, hands resting on their belts. I approached calmly, documents ready. I explained who I was, handed over my ID, and showed them the deed. They checked everything over, and after what felt like forever, one of them gave me a nod. "You're good, sir," he said. Then he turned to Barbara. "Ma'am, this is his property. There's no crime being committed here." Barbara wasn't satisfied. She argued. She protested. She insisted they search me, the house, the yard. The officers politely declined, and, after a few more minutes, they left, though not before giving me an apologetic glance. Barbara, on the other hand, stood at the end of my driveway glaring at me like I'd gotten away with murder. "I'm reporting you to the HOA, she hissed before stomping off. I shook my head and finished installing the smart lock. I figured that was the end of it. A crazy neighbor story I'd tell at dinner parties. But I was wrong. The HOA hunt begins. For about a week, things seemed to settle. No confrontations. No screaming matches. Just me, my new home, and a sense of cautious optimism. And then the emails started. At first, they were polite. "Reminder, please maintain your lawn in accordance with Willow Creek Estates guidelines." That struck me as odd because I just mowed the lawn 2 days earlier. But okay, maybe they had high standards. Then came the next email. "Please refrain from leaving your trash bins out for extended periods." Except I hadn't. I always brought them in on time. Email after email, each one more ridiculous than the last. They were full of vague accusations and thinly veiled threats about fines and citations. I could practically hear Barbara's voice behind each one. She wasn't done with me. Not by a long shot. I decided it was time to attend an HOA meeting. Maybe if I explained things, I could clear the air. I was wrong again. The HOA meeting from hell. I walked into the meeting hopeful, but the cold stares told me I wasn't welcome. Whispers spread like wildfire as I took a seat. I tried to introduce myself, to explain the situation, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Barbara sat at the front of the room, smug as could be. And every time I spoke, she'd chime in with some passive-aggressive remark or outright lie. It was clear she'd been poisoning the well long before I got there. I left that night feeling frustrated and defeated. It wasn't about the smart lock. It wasn't about lawn care or trash bins. This was personal, and I needed to find out why. The deep dive. I started doing some digging. Public records. Social media. Anything I could find on Barbara. Except Barbara wasn't her real name. It was Sheila Carpenter. But Barbara still fit better. Sheila's online footprint was almost non-existent. No social media accounts. No professional profiles. Nothing. And that made me more suspicious. During one of those HOA meetings, I'd overheard someone mention that Sheila was the HOA president. That gave me an idea. I turned my attention to the HOA itself. I pored over past meeting minutes, financial reports, anything I could get my hands on. What I found made my stomach turn. A web of lies. There were discrepancies in the HOA's financial records. Large sums of money being moved into accounts that didn't make sense. Overinflated invoices for landscaping and maintenance. Payments to companies that didn't even exist. And who was signing off on all of these transactions? Sheila Carpenter. She wasn't just harassing me. She was covering her tracks. She was embezzling money from the HOA, and I'd accidentally stumbled into her scheme. Now I understood why she was so determined to get rid of me. An ally in an unlikely place. I knew I couldn't take her down alone. I needed someone on the inside. That's when I met Mrs. Dorothy Davison. She was an elderly woman who had lived in Willow Creek Estates for over 30 years. Respected. Trusted. Sharp as a tack. I shared what I'd found with her, and to my relief, she believed me. Together, we quietly started building a case. We gathered more evidence, documented everything, and interviewed other residents who'd had similar experiences. Then Dorothy dropped a bombshell. She suspected Sheila had an offshore account. And it wasn't just for her. Sheila had an estranged son who'd once worked with her at the HOA. He had a gambling problem, and Dorothy believed Sheila was funneling HOA money to cover his debts. With Dorothy's help, we got access to more records. Sure enough, Sheila had taken out a loan in her son's name and was using HOA funds to pay it off. Worse, she'd blackmailed her son into silence by threatening to expose his addiction. The reckoning. We took our findings to the rest of the HOA board. At first, there was disbelief. Sheila had everyone fooled. But facts don't lie, and the evidence was undeniable. At the next meeting, we laid it all out. The shell companies, the fraudulent invoices, the stolen money. Sheila denied everything. Then she tried to deflect, accusing others, claiming innocence. But no one was buying it. Somebody called the police. This time, when the officers showed up, they weren't here for me. They were here for her. I watched as Sheila Carpenter was led away in handcuffs, her face pale and expression hollow. She'd ruled the community with fear and manipulation for years. Now it was over. The aftermath. The investigation into Sheila's crimes went deeper than anyone expected. She wasn't just embezzling. She was taking bribes from contractors, rigging bids for community projects, and blackmailing other HOA leaders with secrets she'd uncovered. When it was all said and done, Sheila lost everything. Her family disowned her. Her home was seized. She ended up penniless, living on the streets. A pariah in the same community she once controlled. As for me, the HOA issued a formal apology for how I'd been treated. They even elected me as the new president. I made it my mission to restore trust, transparency, and integrity. Willow Creek Estates began to thrive again. And every time I walk through my front gate, the smart lock clicks quietly behind me. A small reminder that sometimes the simplest actions, installing a lock, standing your ground, can unravel the darkest secrets. Sometimes karma really does catch up. And sometimes, a smart lock unlocks far more than you expect.